Hi, I'm Kelly at Book and Paper Arts, and today I'm going to show you how to make echo prints from autumn leaves. Now, this is not a print where you put ink on a leaf and then stamp it. This is where you actually steam the leaves and the paper together so that the texture and the color of the leaf becomes part of the paper. I love these so much. They are not expensive to make, and they are very satisfying. You can do so many things with this. I know from teaching that people can be intimidated if they've never made echo prints with plants before. So today I'm making this video to strip all of that back to make it very basic, very simple. It's not hard. You just need the knack and somebody to push you. That's me. So please stay with me. If you like journal arts, altered books, vintage books, paper, and other ephemera, please subscribe to my YouTube channel and be sure and turn on the notifications. And you will have more of them in your life. Let's go learn how to make echo prints. Let's talk about the materials that we're going to need for making echo prints. Paper is pretty important. You need a heavier weight paper. If you're just using, say, a copier paper or a very lightweight paper, once it gets wet, it is going to just rip and tear and get holes in it. And you'd be much better off using a heavier weight paper. Experiment. Trial and error is a good way, but I know that I'm happy with this is a light watercolor paper. It's, if you're in the States, it's 90 pounds, maybe more like 120. And if you're anywhere else, it's 200 grams per square meter. I'm also using, today I'm using this paper. It's an A3 format, so it's really big. And it's about 170 pounds, which is quite a bit heavier. It's almost like it is a cardstock. It feels very much like a piece of cardboard. And if you're over here, it's 250 grams per square meter. But that's your ballpark. You want something that's just a little bit heavier. One of the reasons that I'm using two weights of paper is I use these echo prints for the same thing year after year. I know what I want them for, and that is for making pages for art journals. And the slightly lighter paper will be for the pages, and the heavier paper will be for the covers. You don't have to do it that way. I've just found that works for me. Now, how big you make your paper depends on a couple of things. One is how big is the pot that you have to boil them, steam them in. They have to be able to stay in there with the lid on. And also, what are you going to be using this for? Now, if you want to make an art print, you're going to want a size more like this probably. But as I say, I know that I'm going to be using mine for cards, for art journal pages. So I'm going to take that original watercolor paper and I'm just going to tear this in half using a ruler or a straight edge. I cannot be bothered. If you want to cut it perfect, that's fine. And now this is going to be my paper for my prints. And it's a really good size for a palm-sized art journal, or for cards, or what you will. You are going to need a mordant. A mordant is something that you add to the water when you're soaking your papers and leaves and steaming them that helps the paper grab that color. If you're making a plant dye or a plant ink or a plant print, you really need a mordant. That is the thing that is going to get you this Very well-defined texture and shape and color. I am using alum. Not everybody likes to use alum. As the name suggests, it has aluminum or aluminium. I'm happy with it. I know how to use it, and I use it very sparingly. If you live in the States, you can find alum in the spice section of a supermarket because it's used for pickling. So you're good to go. Where I live in the UK, it is much harder to find, and I order mine online. There are other mordants that you can use. Soy milk is a mordant, sometimes vinegar, sometimes tea because it has tannins. Rust water is a mordant. So if you don't want to use alum, just go online and do some homework about mordants that are available to you, that work with you, and get going. You are going to need a large pot for steaming your bundles in. I'm here in my kitchen, and this is what a cast iron, big old cast iron pot that I use that is just for ink making and echo print making. It's got a little rust down there. I like that because it helps as a mordant. This is, if you don't have a big old cauldron thingy, you can use any kind of a stock pot or soup pot. This is a stock pot that I am using to soak my papers in before I wrap them into bundles. And I'll be showing you what that looks like in a couple of minutes. If you don't have a big old stock pot, try looking at the thrift store or yard sales, rummage sales, and you can probably find one pretty cheap. For making the bundles, you are going to need something to wrap them around. If you have dowels, proper dowels, that's great. Those would be perfect. I can never find mine when I need them. So instead, when I'm foraging for leaves, I keep my eyes open for some medium thick sticks. They need to be, I've made them small enough so that they will fit into the pot that I'm going to be using. That's a little wonky, but these prints are imperfect. That's okay. You're going to need some heavy, I'm using twine, but you could just use a heavier thread or string or ribbon to hold the bundles into place. This is optional, but I have found that I like wrapping a piece of fabric or gauze around the outside of my bundle. It helps hold it into place, and it also gives me a little bit of echo-printed fabric to play with when we're done. Completely optional. And you need autumn leaves. I'm going to pause here and say a few words about leaves, because some work better than others. Some give better results than others. And it's a little tricky to explain, but I'm going to try. You want a leaf that has already fallen to the ground. If it's still on the tree, it's not ready to give up its color. And that's what you're looking for. You are looking for a leaf that is ready to give up its color. Now, look at this leaf. It is beautiful. It's a lovely thing. And I would love to have a print of this. But and I did pick this off the ground. It's just very recently fallen. Now, look at the back. It's very pretty, but it's almost like a plastic. And that coating, that really healthy coating on the leaf, is going to inhibit it from giving up its color when it's pressed into a bundle of paper. It might work, but it's, in my experience, it's just too young. Now, if you have a leaf that is completely dried up, I don't have any because it rained last night, but you know what I mean, the ones that are like paper that just crumple. Now, that's too dry. That's too old. It's already given up its color to the earth. So your trick is to find the perfect leaf that is ready to give up its color. Now, I might as well tell you they look pretty ordinary. They don't have those stunning fall colors that we are attracted to, but they are the ones that give the best results. I guess, look at this. You can see that it almost has a quality that I call bruised. It's started to rot a little. It's lost that plasticky sheath, that perfectly healthy sheath, and it's ready to give its color up. It's still holding on to a lot of color, a lot of pigment there, but it's thin enough, and that's what's happening. So let's look at that again. If you look at the back's the place to look if you're not sure, and you can see that it's thinner, but still healthy enough to fold and work with, and it's ready to give up that color and texture. This one, again, you can see it's already starting to give up the color. Let's see if we can grab some of that for our bundles. This is kind of in between. And it's a long shot, but I can't resist. I'm going to try it anyway. This one, again, you can see where here it's very healthy on that greeny part, but this is where it's looking bruised and can give up the color. So start looking with that in mind when you're out foraging and see if you can start to see a difference in the leaves and just feel which ones feel like they're ready to give up the color. Here I have my papers. They are damp because they've been soaking in a solution of alum and water, of a mordant and water. I put them into my big pot and made sure the alum was really well dissolved. Don't worry too much about how much. I put in about 2 tablespoons per gallon or 2-ish. You don't need much. And then I let these soak for a few hours or overnight. That's why they're damp. Now, so what this has done is it's let the alum water soak into the fibers of the paper. I've had successful results even when I've skipped this step, but if you have time, go ahead and do it because it really gets that alum into the fibers of the paper. Hedges your bets a lot. I have seen tutorials that make flat bundles. I just don't know how to do it. And I don't have much space. And I found that rolled bundles are a lot more space happy. But if you think you'd like to try flat bundles, there's plenty of stuff online. So go get them. I'm going to be layering leaves with paper. Don't worry too much about if it's a perfect fit because you're going to be layering and overlayering. And if you start agonizing about that now, you're gonna break your heart. So just put some stuff in there. Let's see. That's actually plenty for a first layer because what's going to happen here is going to put another layer. If you have different shapes of leaves, go ahead and alternate a little bit. As I said, once it's printed, they're all going to smudge together. Let's see, that's not one to stay. Let's do that. So what you're seeing now is I'm going to get prints on this side and prints on this side as it comes into these leaves are going to come into contact here and here, which is why I wouldn't worry too much about overlayering or your pattern, because once you've got your bundles going, you're going to have plenty of leaves on both sides. I have 6 layers, 6 pieces of paper and layers of leaves. You could do more, but I'm going to stop there for now. I've got my stick or dowel or what you will, and I'm going to start on the end here, pick up all my layers and start to roll as tightly as I can, as if you were rolling a cinnamon roll or a sushi roll, maybe even a burrito. So don't worry if the leaves move a little bit. It's not that big a deal. Just keep rolling. Make them as tight and as tidy as you can, but don't agonize over it. And again, don't agonize over it, but try to get it tight, because that snugness is what gives the leaves printing against the paper. Now, this is that optional step. I'm going to wrap a little bit of, this is just some light cotton. It used to be a pillowcase in a former life, and it got too old and I couldn't mend it anymore. So I'm just going to wrap that tightly around that to make it even more snug. Gauze is good too, or cheesecloth, or what you got. And I'm going to take the twine and wrap this all around the bundle. There you go. Now I have a nice, tight bundle of several layers of leaves and paper. Now it's time to steam. Now I have my bundles in my pot, my cauldron. And I've got probably about a ½ inch of liquid in there that is alum water. I've also added 3 tea bags. That is so that as these bundles steam, that will just add a little bit more patina to the steam. I have not laid the bundles down flat into the water. I'm trying not to boil them. I'm trying to steam them. Now, clearly, on the bottom there, it's coming in contact with the liquid. It's going to wick up some of the liquid, and it will be kind of getting boiled there on the bottom. It may also get stained from the cast iron. All of these things are fine, because these are imperfect. They're beautiful. You can't predict how they're going to turn out, and you just have to let the patterns and the steam and the leaves and the iron, if you're using iron, just let it do its work. And now what I'm going to do is steam these for about 4 hours. If you can go longer, that's even better. But electricity is really expensive where I live, and I don't dare do more than 4 hours. My husband will kill me. So I'm going to steam these. What I'm going to do is about every ½ hour, I'm going to turn the bundles over so that a different side is facing the water. And after that 4 hours, I'm going to keep the lid on and let them steep for a couple of more. This is what it's looking like. It's about 3 hours into the steaming. You can see that I've got still about a ½ inch of water down there on the bottom. I have been filling this up with, topping it up with the alum water as needed as the water evaporates. So when you're steaming, check it, see if you need to add a little more water. I've been turning the bundles every 45 minutes or so, top to bottom. And you can see that it is steaming. It's at a super low simmer, not a rolling boil, just a very small bubbles, little simmer there. I'm going to let it go for another hour and see what happens. Here are the bundles. They have been drying for about 16 hours. I took them out of the pot where they'd been steaming, and you don't want to open them and unbundle them when they're still soppy wet. What you can do if you live in a warm climate is you can just put them outside on a table or something and let them dry in the air. I do not live in a warm climate. I do have, however, old-timey radiators, which are on this time of year. So I put my bundles on top of the radiator and then turn them every 2 or 3 hours. And like I said, after about a day and half a day, they're dry to the touch on the outside. They're going to be damp on the inside, but that's okay. If you feel strongly about it and you're impatient, you can also put them in the oven to dry. Turn your oven on the lowest setting it can go on. Then put these inside. And again, you want to turn them every half hour or so until they are then dry to the outside. Let's see what we got. Before I unbundle this, I just want to say a word about this gray color. The reason that it's got this gray dark tone is because I used cast iron that's not been cured. And I like that style. But if you are using, say, stainless steel, a stock pot that's stainless steel or aluminum or some other kind of metal, you're probably going to have bundles that have much more of a tea color or a coffee color to them. So if your bundles don't have this heavy gray, that's why. And that's fine. They're both good, just different. Let's see what we got here. Unless you like your prints lumpy and bumpy, be sure that you iron them as soon as you can. As I said, mine were still slightly damp to the touch, especially the ones on the inside of the bundles. That is definitely the best time to press them with just a regular iron. With no steam in there, just you're getting the steam out of it and flattening them. And now they are gorgeous and ready to go. Boy, am I happy with how this batch turned out. But of course, I am showing the A++ prints here, as one does. I'd like to show you, though, that just in case this is your first time around, or maybe you're like me and it's your 17th time around, you still get some pulls that are not A++. Now look at this. Maybe this is a better example. Okay, this really did not give a lot of color. But look at what it did give. Almost a relief in a leaf shape. And now we have this negative space. And that's also interesting, but for a different reason. Okay, that didn't really pop. But you know what it did? Maybe this hasn't popped, but if you could look at this more objectively, what you're going to see is that maybe you don't have a great leaf print. Okay, that one is. But what you do have instead is a really cool page with some mark making that's been made from nature. So maybe you won't use this as a leaf print, but you could use it as the basis for a card or a tag or some other mixed media project. So even if your results are imperfect, don't give up. Do not be too hard on yourself, and please do not be too hard on the leaves. They're doing their best. Later next week, or maybe the week after, I'm going to make a video showing how I'm going to turn these into a handmade art journal. So please stay tuned for that. Coming soon. If you'd like to check out the text box below this video, I have a link to a written version of this tutorial that's been on my website for a couple of years. It's a little bit older, but the information's still good. If that helps you to organize your thoughts, check out that link. Please don't forget that my online courses are 50% off until the 25th of November, when they are finished. If you have any questions or feedback, please let me know in the comments below. YouTube will like me better if you do, and you're going to make my weekend a lot happier. Until later, get up and go make something.